love reading the Bible. So often we think the Bible is just a clear-cut set of rules and things, and you just read it and it's all there and it's so simple. But there's agendas going on in the Bible. There's gossip, there's people moving and trying to get them to agree with others. There's a whole lot that happens. It's written by humans, inspired by God. And as humans, you know how we are. We have agendas. And in this passage, it starts off with a very important verse. And it really shines light on what is going on. Starts with, now the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to Jesus. Uh-oh. The tax collectors and sinners are coming near to Jesus. And so the Pharisees and scribes were grumbling. They didn't like this. He eats with these people. And Jesus is hearing that, and he says, here's a parable. Here is a story. And for many people, when you get, how many of you have heard the Prodigal Son sermon before? Most of us have. Most Prodigal Son sermons are either about the younger son or the older son. Today, I'm not talking so much about either. I'm talking about the father. Because I think in reality, that was the most shocking response of all. We all know people who are like the younger son, who go out and make choices we wish they didn't. Whether they be kids or parents. I've learned through confirmation it's not just kids that make choices that aren't always great. Some of our confirmation kids know parents that don't, their friends and relatives that don't always make great choices. We all know people who have stuck around and stuck to the job and did what was expected. But here we have a father who does what is not expected. So here we have him, 2 sons. He's got these 2 boys. And the younger one says to him, Dad, I want my part. Now, whether he had to give him his part then or not, he chooses to. I have learned that in that time frame that the younger son's portion would have actually been a third. Any of you farmers or have land? Any of you own homes? Now, if your child asked for his inheritance now, how many of you would have to sell your home in order to give it to him? Because we don't have that much in savings. In this day, they didn't have savings. A wealthy person in the New Testament was someone that had 2 sets of clothes and knew where their food was coming for the next few days. That makes every one of us wealthy. You have 2 sets of clothes and know where you're going to get your food for the next few days. Wealthy in the New Testament. And so we have a wealthy farmer and wealthy sons, and I'd even go as far as to say, as we find out later, wealthy slaves and servants. Slaves were a little bit different in the Old Testament than they are what we understand slaves in the history of the United States. And so we had people who had 2 sets of clothes, and we find out later, his servants knew where they were getting their food. In fact, that's what makes them want to go back. So we have a very generous father who is taking good care of his farm. And in order to give his son what he asked for, is going to have to sell part of the land. Now, how many of you know, whether it be children or parents or relatives, who make decisions you wish they didn't? Okay, I think all of us could probably think of someone. The father not only has to watch his son make bad decisions, he pays for it. It's his money which allows this crazy son to make the worst choices he could. I don't know too many fathers that would endure that. But still, he does that. In fact, psychologically speaking, in this day and age, that would not be looked up to. Tough love, parents. Tough love. You don't trust someone who has left you and makes bad choices. You don't let them into your life and hand them a bunch of money. That's unheard of. There are right ways to do that. That doesn't mean you can't invite them back to our lives, but we do it incrementally. So here we have the son. He goes out. It doesn't say that he goes out immediately. In fact, he waits a few days. So he gets his inheritance, and somewhere in that couple days, he decides, I'm going to go. Takes everything he owns and heads off. Heads off, spends it horribly. And actually, it does not say that he's doing bad until the famine comes. Once that famine comes, he has no food. He's working with the pigs, finds a job. That's what a good person does when they have no money. He gets a job. And he thinks, I wish I could have food regularly like these pigs do. He says, no one gives it to me, but someone's giving it to them. That's when he realizes he is poor. He doesn't have those two clothes. Well, I don't know. He probably does have his two clothes. But he doesn't have that guarantee of food. And so for that moment, he realizes, I'm going back home. And just like a good, godly person, he says, plans it, I'm sure, all the way there. I am going to tell my father, I screwed up, I did wrong. You don't have to accept me as an equal. I just want to be a servant. That seems fair. That makes sense to me. But the father does not do that. The father sees him coming down the road and runs to him, hugs him, loves him. This is not tough love. Loves him. Says, give him a cloak, the best one we have. Put rings on his finger, give him shoes. Give him that wealth. Kill the fatted calf. Have a party. That, as a mom, I understand. As a human, I have to wonder. I'm sorry, I've been hurt by people. And I would have a really hard time accepting them back without some conditions, some protection of my own person. To say, okay, but I'm going to be your friend, but I'm going to make sure that you don't have the ability to hurt me again. I'm going to be there for you, but you make sure, like he offers in the beginning, very American. I'm going to start at the bottom, I'll work my way up into your grace. He actually doesn't say he's going to work his way up, but we can kind of infer that that's kind of what he hoped for secretly, as any of us would. But no, we have a father who doesn't do tough love, who doesn't put any expectations on the son, does not even say, okay, but you better not do this again. Because that's where I'd be. I'd love him, but let me tell you, I would make it clear we're not doing this prostitute thing again. It's just not going to happen. And I certainly am not paying for it. And so this idea that this father does the unexpected, and that's what the listeners would have heard. They'd understand the younger brother. That makes sense. We've all met people like that. They'd understand the older brother who would say, that's just not fair. In fact, many of them were probably on that brother's side, saying, this isn't fair, that you're just going to throw a party for him after he screwed up. But what they don't understand is the father who gives all, again and again. You see, we have an inheritance. Cody has an inheritance. We have this water, this life. We have heaven. And the reality is what are we doing with it? And let's be honest, I'm very thankful that we have a God who does not keep track. Because the reality is, what we do with it is not always pleasant, even in the best of us. We all fall short. We all mess up. We all fail to see the value of that inheritance, that water, that promise that we've been given. We have a Father who does not care about what we've done, how much of his resources we've used up, because he's limitless. He has an unlimited amount of resources. He is limitless. Before I finish today, I want to share a story about a woman named Mabel. I went to college in San Diego at Point Loma Nazarene College, by far the prettiest college in the United States. I could sit in my dorm room bed and watch the waves. It was ridiculous, and every day there I thank God for being there. A beautiful place. But if you're going to be homeless, the place to be is San Diego, because the weather never goes more than 10 degrees above 65. And so, really, you don't have to worry about being too cold or being too hot. And that's why a lot of people migrate to San Diego. In this college, it's a Nazarene Christian college, and a lot of ministries took place. And one of the things that a lot of the kids came together one day and said, we want to do something for all the homeless people we see. And so they decided that they were going to have every Tuesday, they drive down, found out they could get use of the van from the college, drive down downtown and feed people. So these kids would get together and they would make meals, and each one would take a turn. Now, these are dorms, and they don't have kitchens, so there were a lot of hot pots at work making macaroni and cheese. A lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches came out of those dorm rooms. Some of them lived in homes, and so you get maybe a lasagna from someone who had a kitchen. And what they do is they take those food, they pack it up, and they'd stop at a destination. Pretty soon all of the homeless in that area would know, if I go at 5 o'clock at this spot, I can get a meal. 7 o'clock, they started expanding it out once they realized people were enjoying it so much. 7 o'clock, if they go to this spot, they get a meal. So pretty soon they'd have this ministry, and it was something no adult told them to do. This was something they came up with on their own. One of the leaders of that group had really been talking to a woman named Mabel. And there are 3 things that make Mabel different. 1, she's homeless. 2, she had a full beard. And 3, she was incontinent. Now, in middle-class America, or even upper-class America, and even lower-class America, those things can be managed. But on the streets, it's a different thing. They had been talking to this Mabel, and really, she didn't always come up to get food because she wasn't always appropriate. And so often they'd go to her and bring her food and sit and chat with her. And after many weeks of talking, they finally convinced her to come to church one Sunday. So they went and got the van, school van, drove it on down, and went to find Mabel. And there is Mabel, sitting in her spot. And she says to him, I can't go. And they said, Mabel, why? She says, I've had a bad night. And they said, no, Mabel, you can come. Oh, no, I stink. I can't. And they said, Mabel, we don't care. And so Mabel stood up, and the filth of the night before fell to the ground. They grabbed a piece of cardboard, stuck it in the van, and put Mabel on top of it, and drove her with their head out the window all the way to campus, which is where the church was. They took her to one of the girls' dorms. Each dorm has a shower facility for everyone. They took her to the showers. They had a supply of shampoo and conditioner and fun smelling things. They let her take a shower. By this point, they were running a little late. The service was at least a third of the way through. And so, of course, like any good church, The only open seats were in the front. And it was a big church because it's where all 3,000 students sit for chapel. So this was a huge church. And they walked her down to the front of the church and sat with her. Not one person gave her a dirty look. Not one person questioned her. Afterwards, they took her to a beautiful site overlooking the ocean and had a picnic lunch. And she got up afterwards and hugged them and couldn't let go and said, "You made me feel like a woman again. You made me feel whole." We have a Father who does that for us, who makes us feel like women and men again. Whole people, not what we've become, but what we started out as. People who are loved and cared for, who are worthy of special soaps and a nice shower and a church that will not give dirty looks to the woman who is clearly homeless. That's what God wants, and that's who God is. And what an amazing God we have. Amen.